Okay. Good morning, everybody. Oh, come on now. We're here again. We are together. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. There we go. Even behind these masks, we can still show some joy. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here at the Moore College of Art and Design. This has been a long conversation in planning and content, and I think, you know, for the context of the world that we are living in right now, there is no better time, or no worse time, no better worse time than to be thinking about the future of the museum. I want to say a few brief thank yous. I want to give some context for who we are at Common Ground Research Networks. By the way, I'm Philip Calancis Cope. I'm the Chief Social Scientist of Common Ground Research Networks. Some of the things that we've been doing are around our own technologies in scholarly communication, and then I'm going to pass it along. So first thank you, of course, goes to our wonderful host, Moore College of Art and Design. Daniel Tucker has been our host. He's been a wonderful partner in conversation, in spirit, and in dedication. So I want to give him recognition. We also have some wonderful partners that are in the museum community here. One of the things that is unique about this conference that we've done since day one is to get people out of the traditional conference room and into museums themselves. And so we have an amazing group of partners for our museum day. We have the Academy of Natural Sciences, where our reception was last night. We have the Barnes Foundation, who have done a tremendous amount of work, the Philadelphia Museum of the Arts, and the Mural Arts group. We hope that you sign up for one of those pathways on tomorrow. If you've not signed up for one of those groups, please go speak to Tamsin at the front desk. We'd also like to thank another group of partners from Drexel University, Laura Edith Coleman, who I think is here as well. Yes, we'll give her a round of applause. Julie Goodman, Jason Subach, who's the Dean. All of them have done a tremendous amount of work building a community here in Philadelphia around this conference. So thank you very much. So one of the things, and I'm going to try and be as brief as possible here, is one of the things that we did when COVID came to us is we really wanted to think about longer term solutions for what the future of the academic conference, or what is the future of scholarly conferences in the scholarly communication ecosystem, to not build a temporary shelter for digital spaces, but to build something that we think can be a foundation going forward. And what we have built is an infrastructure for a blended conference. And what I want to tell you all is that we are recording and we are beaming into 100 online delegates right now. Each of them has their own digital content. So what we decided is that rather than have live presentations, is that everybody, including you, have a presentation page where we encourage you to upload digital content. And then we have discussion boards that sit around this presentation page so people can engage at a time that works best for them. We didn't want to privilege one time zone, one space, you know, all these kinds of things. And what we are trying to build is a time capsule of content which you as conference participants can go back to. You can go back to that talk, you can have that discussion, and you can connect with peers that are within this space. What that has also meant is that, and this is part of our own climate pact as well, is that we have removed conference programs, bags, pens, all that kind of stuff. But importantly, the conference program is gone because we want you inside this space, commenting in those discussion boards, viewing content. So please really take the time to engage in that process. As a research network. We're not just a conference. We have a wonderful journal as well. I encourage you to submit to that journal. We have a book series. We try and find as many ways to capture and bottle the conversations that happen inside of these rooms. I think I'm not going to say anymore. I think it's about time to hand it over, and I'm going to hand it over to the president of Moore College of Art and Design, Cecilia Fitzgibbon. Cecilia.
Good morning. You don't have to do the same call and response. The only bad thing about being remote is you don't get the same audience buzz, the same volume from people when you ask them to say good morning. But nevertheless, welcome to all of you here and in the digital space. Moore College of Art and Design is a historically all women's undergraduate college that has evolved to include co-educational BFA and graduate programs. I'm sorry, co-educational children's programs, adult programs, and graduate programs. We got. But really, they're all focused to educate artists and designers to build creative enterprise and careers of significant impact. We're a forum for big ideas. That's why we've invited you to join us. And a champion for creative expression as a means to connect local and global communities. The intersection of community, the field, and artist stands at the core of who we are and is represented in our new brand mark, where you see the connecting circles of the two O's. Please take a moment. You'll see it all over the place to get a preview of the student work being hung in the galleries, where next week we will invite over 500 people from the communities to come here and talk to the students and hopefully sponsor them in their first career opportunity to be leaders and influence arts and culture. And before I let you go to the next speaker, to our very esteemed speaker, and introduce you to my colleague, Daniel Tucker, I want to tell you two stories. I have a previous student in the audience who knows that I'm a storyteller by nature, being of Irish descent. My father was a blue-collar worker. He's the smartest guy I knew. And when I told him I was going to grad school in NYU in New York City, he said to me, "What do you want to do that for? The arts are for rich people." Fast forward to sending my first son away to college. We did a terrible job as parents. And he said in the car full of stuff, "I am never going to another museum again," because it was so painful. It didn't take him long to re-engage as a cultural consumer. And this December, I received a photograph of his 15-month-old daughter studying one of the Degas sculptures at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. So it comes full circle, doesn't it? This is precisely why you are here, to engage, to learn, to discuss how to conquer that lingering sense that there is an exclusivity to art and culture that precludes some because of their circumstance, and to act upon closing that gap so that everyone, regardless of their privilege and upbringing or habit of attending, can feel part of the museum. It is our job to create institutions that close that gap and deliver on the promise that the arts are indeed for everyone. So welcome to Moore. Thank you very much for coming. We're delighted to have such an esteemed international audience. Thank you, Philip. And I'm pleased to introduce you to my colleague, Daniel Tucker, who is a department head and also a program director for our graduate program in community engaged and socially engaged art. So Daniel, come on up.
Thanks, Cecilia. Really appreciate those remarks and that framing of our time here and really the stakes of the time here. So a lot of the thank yous have been given already, but I want to extend a few here locally on campus. First to President Fitzgibbon and our academic dean, Claudine Thomas, for just supporting the space that we're holding and making here for this conversation. It's been incredibly rewarding for me in the last 8 years to work at a school where when I come to the leadership with a pitch or an idea, they say yes, right? They say yes to this kind of convening and this kind of activity. When I made the initial kind of offer to Common Ground and Margala about hosting the conference here in Philadelphia, the pitch was also kind of premised on Moore College of Art and Design, right? We're here on the Parkway. There's all these museums right here. It's a World Heritage City. Let's open up this this space and unfurl onto the Parkway. And when I was, sharing this with one of my colleagues, Marina McDougall, who hosted us last night at the Academy of Natural Sciences, she reminded me of this incredible history of the Parkway School that was a 1970s and experiment in education that took place here on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway and made use of all of the different, the constellation of entities, both institutional as well as sort of natural surroundings. And those are the kinds of questions that we ask here in the graduate program at Moore. So as Cecilia said, we have a socially engaged art MFA and MA program. And we also have an art education program that focuses on inclusion. And in across these two programs, something that ties them together is that we really see that we're educating the next generation of public engagement practitioners, right? And that looks different whether you're in a school or you're in a museum or you're in an arts organization. But it's really rewarding to have the space with graduate students and colleagues here at Moore to think through what those questions are, because the way that museum workers have historically been trained haven't often foregrounded those questions of public engagement. And so our curriculum is kind of a hybrid of community organizing, arts administration, and independent kind of research initiatives and artist practice. I also want to thank our AV technician, Claire Devlin is in the back. Thanks so much. Claire is also someone who says yes, and that's a really great thing to encounter when you're asking kind of complicated questions that you definitely can't solve on your own about technology. And so it's been great to work with Claire. And similarly, the galleries here at Moore and department chairs also, said yes, and we're accommodating when we realize, hey, there's going to be, a really important conversation happening here at the same time as the undergraduate students are installing their thesis exhibit. We're not going to stop anyone from installing their thesis exhibit, but we at least want people to be mindful of the fact that there's different people moving around campus at this time. And so, as Cecilia said, this is happening right now. It's unfolding. So probably over the next 3 days, you'll see things pop up on the wall, and just be aware that that's what's being installed for our grand opening of that exhibition next week. And finally, I want to just say a little bit about about my encounter with inclusive museums. So I went to inclusive museums for the first time in 2019 in Buenos Aires, Argentina, supported by a faculty development grant here at Moore. And one of the things that I did there was I went to talk about this curriculum that we've developed here at Moore over the last several years. And what I found was a really special learning community of people who were asking similar questions as I was, but from different angles. You know, I ended up on a bus ride of the city, you know, sandwiched between someone who runs a mobile history museum in Sri Lanka and someone who does public practice and social practice art at the Tate Modern, right? And that's a special seat on the bus, right? To be in between those two people. But I credit Common Ground and Amar Gala for making that space over the last decade plus for those kind of encounters to take place. And so that you know a little bit about, you know, the way our next hour or so will go before we break into sessions, I want to also make sure that you know where the nearest restroom is, which is around the corner here, right? So you leave the door here, a left, and then another left down the little ramp. That's the nearest one. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me or other folks here from Moore. But to say a little bit about Amar Gala, who will then engage in a discussion with our esteemed guest. Amar Gala is a professor of inclusive cultural leadership and the director of the International Center for Inclusive Cultural Leadership at Anant National University in India. He's also the executive director of the International Institute for the Inclusive Museum. And the International Institute for the Inclusive Museum are the conveners of this conference on an ongoing basis with their partners at Common Ground Research Network. And Amar Gala is also the former vice president of ICOM in Paris and of the Asia Pacific network of ICOM. And so, you know, is really someone who has brought a lot of threads and connectivity globally into this convening. And of course, you know, top of his list when we're coming to Philadelphia was thinking about who would be some of the keynote and plenary speakers who could help guide us through this space. And so really appreciate Amar reaching out to his old friend, Lonnie Bunch. So I'm gonna hand it off to Amar to welcome Lonnie, and then we'll get started. Thanks so much for being here. Yeah.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm not going to do Phil and say, hello, I haven't heard you. Good morning. And all of you and all those who are online too, you know, good morning and welcome. Before I invite Dr. Lonnie Bunch to the podium, I just want to mention very briefly why we started the Inclusive Museum Research Network. In 2004, I was running a masterclass in the Tropen Museum in Amsterdam for 16 PhD students from around the world to deal with diversity in museums and also what is now popularly called decolonization. And at morning coffee time, I had to get some fresh air because you can get quite suffocated in museums. So I came out through the side door from the Kinder Museum. As I came out, I saw what looked like a body covered in white cloth, and the police were on the other side. The police immediately, as soon as they saw me, they came to my side to stop me from walking towards the body. It was Theo van Gogh, the artist, the producer and director, who was murdered that morning. And what happened in the next few days shocked a lot of us. The Dutch society, which took pride in being the most benevolent in dealing with cultural diversity, multiculturalism, very generous in resourcing, fell apart. I mean, it's not just mosques. Even a primary school with mostly Muslim children that was burned down. Three Lutheran churches were also torched. And so this shocked everybody. So on the 10th of November 2004, there was a national forum, and which was attended by many ministers of culture in Europe who were quite surprised by what happened. And myself and Baroness Lola Young from the British Parliament, we both were asked to address them. But the only thing we had to stick to was that the Dutch kept on saying Dutch and foreigners. And foreigners include descendants of the Swahili-speaking people who've been there because of the slave trade, through Rotterdam for a very long time, and not decades, but centuries. Still, they were called foreigners. So we thought there was something basically wrong in the way we address our culturally and linguistically diverse populations. And while I was discussing this with the president of Common Ground Publishing, we came up with the idea with the family of the Common Ground, how about we do a research network so that people can share how the institution of the museum could become inclusive. We didn't want to define. Defining is containing. So it was basically, how can it become? There's no one way of doing these things. And different people are trying, but we should share what we are doing. And we were also inspired by the inaugural presidential speech of Nelson Mandela on the 10th of May, the decade before, in 1994, at the Union Square in Pretoria. As he finished his inauguration speech, he finished off by saying, "Let there be water, let there be land, and let there be salt for all people of South Africa." But he was consistent in the transformation process, all people of South Africa. So we took the line that transformation of museums to become inclusive is for all our stakeholders, all our participants, and it has to be for everybody, not for us and them. Because to a large extent, case study analysis showed it was always about them, us reaching out, but no inreach. It was always outreach, but no inreach, no meaningful engagement. You'll soon hear how far we have come in the conversation with Dr. Lonnie Bunch. But for now, I just want to remind you why we started. We're still going strong. This is our 15th conference. And we have a very large network from around the world. And we move around the world to make it more accessible. And so make your best of your time, contribute. We all want to learn from all of you and share. So I wish you all the best for the next 3 days. Thank you. Now,